Yesterday we were discussing the results of service to the external energy and service to the internal potency, devotional service. Remember, we talked about what Caitanya Caritamrita describes in the discussion, the instruction given by Lord Caitanya to Sanatana Goswami, Sanatana Shiksha, how the eternally liberated soul, Nitya Mukta, is always awake to Krishna's service. And the eternally conditioned soul always turns away from Krishna's service. So this is a key distinguishing factor. As we discussed yesterday, we also discussed, if you may remember, how the process of degradation is that first you become a servant of lusty desires. But the servitude doesn't end there. From servitude to lusty desires, you must become a servant of anger. Why? Because, as we also discussed, desires, material desires, can never be fulfilled. Therefore, there must be anger following material desire. So this is why it is ludicrous for us to expect that there'll be peace through material indulgence, peace through material efforts to bring people together. Because as long as people are in the clutches of passion and ignorance, rajaguna, tamoguna, even though they may want to make amends, even though they may want to agree and have harmony, the modes of nature rip everything apart. At least until they're situated on the platform of sattva-guna, the mode of goodness. And even that perch is precarious. Why? Because the interaction of the modes of material nature is always shifting. The modes of material nature are in competition with each other. So therefore, even a position completely in the material mode of goodness, such as the position of the devas, the demigods, is not secure. Therefore, as we, again, discussed yesterday, even in the realm of the devas, there are disturbances. So this is an essential point for us to assimilate. That material desires always lead to anger, and that anger manifests in one way or another. Disagreements, quarrels, divorces, breakups of all types, conflicts, domestic conflicts, national conflicts, international conflicts. Who knows where to point the finger? Everyone always points at one another. And of course, because we are puppets of the modes of material nature, we do deserve the blame. But that's not the big picture. The big picture is the material energy which we're absorbed in. We've taken shelter of the material energy. And therefore our efforts for peace and harmony, togetherness, always disintegrate into anger, conflict. So this is how practical the bhakti knowledge is. The bhakti yogi is not some kind of pie in the sky, airy fairy type. Love, peace, and happiness. We understand the cycle of material degradation. And we also have the knowledge to understand what is love. What is the source of love? And not only do we have the knowledge, but we have the method. The knowledge actually is the method to achieve that supreme source of love. The bhakti yogi knows how to understand the workings of the material energy. We're not living in la-la land. We know the dynamics of the illusory energy. So therefore, our discussion yesterday was important in that the information Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving in Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is so protective for us if we indeed want that kind of protection. So the verse we ended up discussing yesterday was Madhya 22, the process of devotional service, text 14 and 15. And then we'll just briefly review that verse, and then we'll go to chanting today's verse. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires. And when these are not fulfilled, he becomes the servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy, Maya. Wandering and wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance get the association of a devotee physician whose instructions and hymns make the witch of the external energy flee. The conditioned soul thus gets in touch with devotional service to Lord Krishna. And in this way, he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord. So we highlighted especially some aspects of this verse. Continues to be kicked by the external energy. So you get kicked one way by serving the lusty desires, but your problems aren't finished by that. Then you get kicked by anger. Meanwhile, what is your overall situation, your overall existential situation? You're wandering and wandering throughout the universe. This is a point that the Bhakti texts especially make about our sojourn through existence. You're wandering. I don't know if you've ever purposely just wandered somewhere. Trying to think, when did I ever do that? In the ordinary sense. Of course, I've done it for many lifetimes, but not speaking in the cosmic sense, but in terms of ordinarily perceived existence. I think as a little kid, I must have gone. If I went to a new city to visit a relative, I might just wander around. I remember must have been maybe 9 years old, and my mother sent me to Washington, D.C. to visit a relative there. And I just would wander around seeing the sights. My mother had given me $10 for sightseeing money, the transport and paying the fees for the monuments and all that kind of thing. But I had a brilliant idea. Instead of spending the money on public transport, I'll just walk everywhere. And then when I get back home to New York, I'll have $10. So I did that. I walked all over Washington, D.C., seeing the sights, saving money while seeing the sights at the same time. So then when I got back to New York, what does my mother do? She asked, well, do you have any money left over from what I gave you? I was shocked. Wait a minute. I earned this money fair and square, wandering throughout Washington, D.C. without spending on public transport. And now you're asking if I have anything left over and you want it back. What kind of capitalism is this? So maybe you've had experiences of just wandering somewhere. Maybe you've gone to the forest and just aimlessly wandered somewhere. So that gives you some idea of our existential position in the cosmos, in the material manifestation. Just wandering, trying to fulfill desires. And everything seems so appropriate. Everything seems so proper because I'm just trying to fulfill desires. What else could you want? Is there any further justification needed? I'm just wandering, trying to fulfill desires. And maybe in my wandering, I'll meet up with this one or meet up with that one and let the universe act through me. So this theme of wandering throughout the universe is repeated very often in the Bhakti Yoga texts. But during that wandering, something extraordinary may happen. He may, by chance, get the association of a devotee physician, sadhu vaidya, who has medicine. And what is that medicine? Instructions, upadesh, and mantra, hymns that make the external energy witch run away. So the result? The conditioned soul thus gets into touch with devotional service to Lord Krishna. And in this way, he can approach nearer and nearer to Krishna. This is mercy from Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He's giving you the overview. You don't have to bewilder yourself with existential dread. I was speaking, I believe, the other day, maybe last weekend, about one devotee in the USA who was taking life very seriously, although only 19 years old. What is it all about? What's going on? What's the point of all this? Taking it so seriously that she became depressed. And so it was recommended to her that she goes to see the university psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist listened to her, hearing about her feeling lost in the cosmos and what's the point of it all, what's it all about. And then finally the psychiatrist said, you know, we've got psychiatric drugs for so many things, but what you have, we don't have any drug for it. You have existential dread. We've got no drugs for that. In other words, just gonna have to tough it out, you know? Go on a party binge and get a few boyfriends and this information from Lord Caitanya is so precious because it lets you see what your whole backdrop is and what's in the foreground. Otherwise, we're just proceeding blindly, serving our senses. And then serving anger. So let's move to the text for today. Text 16 of Madhya Lila 22. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Caitanya, Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
This verse is a bit of a Sanskrit mouthful, so okay, give it a try. Kāmādīnāṁ katidhā pālitā durnideśās. teṣāṁ jātā mayi karuṇā trapā nopaśāntiḥ. utsṛjyaitān atha yadu-pate sāmprataṁ labdha-buddhis. tvām āyātaḥ śaraṇam abhayaṁ niyuṅkṣvātma-dāsye. kāmādīnāṁ of my masters, such as lust, anger, greed, illusion, and envy. Kati, how many? Not. Katidhā, in how many ways? Pālitā, obey. Durnideśās, undesirable orders. teṣāṁ, of them. Jātā, generated. Mayi, unto me. Not. Karuṇā, mercy. Not. Trapā, shame. Not. Upaśāntiḥ, desire to cease. Utsṛjyaitān, giving up. Āyātaḥ, all these. Atha, herewith. Yadu-pate, oh, best of the Yadu dynasty. Sāmprataṁ, now. Labdha-buddhis, having awakened intelligence. Tvām, you. Āyātaḥ, approach. śaraṇam, who are the shelter. Abhayaṁ, fearless. Me. niyuṅkṣvātma-dāsye, please engage. Atma-dāsye, in your personal service. Translation. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires. And I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. Purport. Or shall we chant the verse together? O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, They have not shown any mercy to me.
They have not shown any mercy to me.
I have not been ashamed to serve them.
I have not been ashamed to serve them.
Nor have I even desired to give them up.
Nor have I even desired to give them up.
O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty.
O my Lord, I pray the dynasty.
Recently, however,
Recently, however,
my intelligence has been awakened.
my intelligence has been awakened.
And now I am giving them up.
And now I'm giving them up.
Due to transcendental intelligence,
Due to transcendental intelligence,
I now refuse to obey
I now refuse to obey
the unwanted orders of these desires.
the unwanted orders of these desires.
And I now come to you
And I now come to you
to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet.
to surrender
Kindly engage me in your personal service
kindly engage in your personal service
and save me.
and save me.
Purport. And this verse is also quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are saying, Hare, O energy of the Lord, O my Lord Krishna. In this way, we are simply addressing the Lord and his spiritual potency, represented as Radha Krishna, Sita Rama, or Lakshmi Narayana. The devotee always prays to the Lord and his internal energy, consort, so that he may engage in their transcendental loving service. When the conditioned soul attains his real spiritual energy and fully surrenders unto the Lord's lotus feet, he tries to engage in the Lord's service. This is the real constitutional position of the living entity. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshrum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Here we have a pathetic situation. And indeed, material existence is pathetic. I don't know how many of you finally come to that conclusion. Or maybe some of you came to that conclusion, but then you forgot. Because as we often explain, your duration in bhakti cannot be sustained simply by remembrance of your pathetic material life. And it was pathetic no matter how successful you thought you were. But mere memory, mere remembrance won't carry you through your bhakti lifetime. Gradually, the memories of frustration fade. And if your enrollment, your engagement in bhakti is just based on having been, as they say, fried out by the material energy, such motivation won't last because memories fade. Therefore, we need to hear. That's why in the previous verse, Lord Caitanya explains what the sadhu vaidya, the devotee physician, offers. Upadesh, instructions and mantra, hymns that make the witch of material energy run away. So we briefly discussed yesterday how by your keeping yourself immersed in hearing and chanting about Krishna, you're becoming immune to the material energy. But that therapy has to happen every day, because the illusory energy gives you no vacation. You're enticed into the service of the illusory energy. You're dragged deep down into it, and then there's no break. So this is what our verse today is explaining. First of all, kāmādīnāṁ, my masters. Not simply kama, lust, but anger, greed, illusion, envy, madness. Kāmādīnāṁ. One master is bad enough, but you've got 6 of these. Now you might say, I'll just take the lust and forget the rest. No, it's a 6-pack. You reach for one, you gotta get the others too. I'll just be lusty, but I won't be angry. I'll be a peaceful lusty person. I'll be a kind lusty person. I won't be envious. I won't be greedy. Now, all those 6 must be there to varying degrees. So what's the nature of service to these unwanted orders? Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. They don't give you any holiday. And so these desires just burn and burn and burn and cause havoc. And where do you turn? To get relief, what do? You turn to other material desires. Let me replace a material desire that's currently frustrating me with another material desire. In this way, as Prahlāda Maharaj explains often, the remedy is worse than the disease, because you're juggling plans and ambitions for material fulfillment. So one crashes, well, I'll switch to another. But when can you say, I've had it, that's it, no more service to these masters? They don't let you go. You may even try to say that. Enough is enough. You may say that, but the taskmasters push you onward, cracking the whip. Therefore, no mercy. No holiday, no vacation. Who wants to work for that kind of employer? Furthermore, the verse says that even though such taskmasters are so merciless, I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. So I'm being oppressed, I'm being abused, I'm being exploited by the material energy. But I'm not ashamed, I don't want to give it up, I'm even proud of it. I'm a battler. I'm pushing on. And the world creates a false sense of honor for such pathetic endurance. Then there's a change. Oh, yadu-pate, chief of the Yadu dynasty. Recently, however, my spiritual intelligence has awakened. And now, because of the awakened spiritual intelligence, I'm leaving aside these desires, these taskmasters. Due to transcendental intelligence, not ordinary intelligence, nothing that teach you in the university. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires. And now I've come to surrender myself at your lotus feet, your fearless lotus feet. You see, as long as there is material desire, there must be fear. Because your material desire means operate in the material world, and the material world means anxiety, fear. That's the nature of the pool you're swimming in. You want to just have material existence without fear and anxiety? That's like saying you're going to go to the public swimming pool. What's it called nearby? Go to the Freiburg pool and say, I want to swim here, but not with the chlorine in the water. This is not going to happen. The chlorine has to be there in the water. It's a city regulation. But you may have that aspiration. Yes, I'm happily on my way to the Freiburg pool, but they must remove the chlorine so that I may swim. That's as foolish as saying that we engage in material activities, but there should be peace. There should be no fear and no anxiety. Stress-free material existence. It's not going to happen. So we need to hear this information from Mahaprabhu himself in his instruction to Sanatana Goswami. As we hear these verses, we see ourselves, we apply these verses to ourselves. That's śaraṇam, that's remembering. There's śravanam, hearing, kirtanam, chanting, vibrating, and then śaraṇam, remembering. By discussing these things amongst ourselves, especially, this knowledge sticks. And day by day, year by year, decade by decade, as our bhakti life develops, the śaraṇam, the remembrance of this upadesh, these instructions, sticks deeper and deeper. You might say to yourself, will I always be fighting this battle against material desire? But through endurance and perseverance in bhakti, the remembrance of these divine instructions, which bring about divine intelligence in you, this remembrance becomes thicker and thicker, sweeter and sweeter. So please, get at least one point today deep into your consciousness. Kāmādīnāṁ, katidhā. There's no limit to the unwanted orders of these material desires. You may say, well, I'll just pick one. That's all. No, you pick one, you've got to take the whole infantry. Material desire. Where else do you get such insight into the dynamics of the illusory energy? Without this knowledge, we're so foolish, we're bereft of any real protection. But this bhakti knowledge produces transcendental intelligence. Intelligence that no mundane institution can award you. Sometimes I hear from devotees about how they may feel hopeless in their progressive march in bhakti. Oh, When will I ever chant with attention? When will I ever fully control my mind? When will I put my heart into devotional service? And I explained to them that this kind of longing is actually good. We're proud, so right? We don't like begging, we don't like longing. What I want, I get right now. Material life, yes, teaches you to be proud that you get it right now. What you want, you get it right now. That's the mark of a successful person. Everything is within your grip immediately. Reminds you of an advert for a digital camera I saw. And it showed a kind of, I guess what ladies would consider a handsome, rugged-looking man, a bit of hair on the face, wearing a leather jacket. And he's in the mountains. Could be like, what is it, Mount Cook or something like that. Tekapo, is that the... And he's got a little little digital camera in his hand, and you see him just capturing the scenery. And so the advert's telling you, like, this is the real thing. He can capture. So look at those beautiful mountains. Just with that little camera, he's captured it all. See his power. Just by picking one button, you see him, and then he goes. He's got it. Beauty that took nature millions of years to create just by pressing one button. It's his. He's got it in his hand. So that's what we're accustomed to. So we don't like begging. We don't like longing. But there's so many verses, so many songs by the Vaishnavacharyas about indeed longing and begging. So when devotees tell me, when will it ever happen? When will I ever make some advancement? I know that actually this is kind of good as long as they don't have the notion that they should give up. But if they know how to use those feelings, those longings, to propel themselves forward, they'll be successful. At the top levels of bhakti, that's exactly what goes on 100%. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying, when will that day be mine when I chant Hare Krishna purely? When will that day be mine when I roam on the banks of the Ganga, shouting Gaura Nityananda in ecstasy? When will that day be mine? And then Narottam Das Thakur, Gauranga Bodhite Habe Pulaka Sharir. When will the day come when I chant Hare Krishna, when I chant Gauranga, and tears shoot from my eyes? When will that day happen? When will it come? My hairs will stand on end. Of course, these acharyas have no thought of giving up. So it's what I call the transcendental blues. Material blues, it's mode of ignorance. Moaning and groaning and singing and saying things like, if it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. I've been downhearted ever since the day we met. Our love is nothing but the blues. How blue can you get? And then the blues singer goes on about how he tried so hard to please his partner and everything resulted in dissatisfaction. I bought her a $30 dinner. She says, thanks for the snack. I gave her a brand new penthouse. She said it was just a shack. I bought her a brand new Ford. She said, I want a Cadillac. And then the peak of the song is, and I gave her 7 children, and now she wants to give them back. Oh, how blue can you get? So that kind of lamentation just drives you to suicide or intoxication, mode of ignorance. But the transcendental blues propel you closer to Krishna. Manusha janama paya radha Krishna na bhajiya. I wasted my whole human life. I have not served Radha and Krishna. I willingly drunk poison. So actually I appreciate when I hear from devotees, when I hear them express their beginning stages of these most elevated transcendental blues. Oh, I just can't chant with attention. I'm trying. How can I control my mind? I know if they stick to it and beg, they'll be successful. But we so quickly associate longing and aspiring for frustration and desperation because we're so fruitive. We're so hooked on immediate, instant results. But the kind of longing and aspiring that the Bhakti texts recommend is when you place no limit on your longing. I'll go on and on like this. I'll go on and on serving Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna. When will that day come when I actually have a taste, but I'm not going to stop? That's when you know your longing is spiritual. So we'll turn to a verse in the 23rd chapter of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita called Life's Ultimate Goal. And this section of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is describing bhavankura, the word for the stage of bhava, preliminary stage of praying, in its seedling beginning. Bhava Ankur, the seedling of bhava, which has 9 characteristics. One of the 9 characteristics is asha bandha. It seems like a hopelessness, but actually it's a confident hope. I have no qualifications, but still I'm begging you, Gopi Jana Ballabha. It's not a futile hope. I just hope, but I know it's never going to happen, so I might as well give up now. No, it's a confident hope against hope. That hope against hope means there's no material reason why my hope should be fulfilled, but there is a spiritual reason. So this asha bandha shows you the peak potential of expressing desperate hope in bhakti. So this verse quoted in Caitanya Caritamrita, which is also in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is presented as coming from a conditioned soul, but actually it's being recited by someone who's at the stage of preliminary love of Krishna, wanting to go deeper, to pray. But because it's phrased, it's expressed as if it's coming from a conditioned soul, we can certainly recite it. So sometimes this asha bandha is described as hope against hope. And I notice sometimes devotees then get the impression that there is no hope, even though you're hoping. But more accurately, asha bandha, one of the 9 characteristics of ecstasy in the preliminary stage of prema, one of the characteristics is this confidence in the hopeful feelings. Even though materially there's no hope, there's full confidence that Krishna will be merciful. So I hope you get the distinction here. You see, bhakti is about the core feelings, but purified core feelings. Bhakti is not about dry jnana. It's about the most intense emotional expression that's for real, not all the superficial emotional complexities that cloud our sky. And we get so caught up in these temporary emotional complexities that appear in the sky like clouds, and then one gust of wind and they're gone. No. The knowledge of bhakti is teaching you about the most substantial, eternal emotions. So let's hear what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has to say. Krishna kripa kori bhen, dridha kori jane. A fully surrendered devotee always hopes that Lord Krishna will be kind to him. This hope is very firm in him. So it's not a hope of unfounded hope or a hope that's futile. There's the very firm and strong hope that even though I have no material qualification, even no spiritual qualification, Krishna will be kind to me. So I found this verse to be important because, as I said, devotees often express, oh, when will I taste the holy name? When will I engage in service with enthusiasm? I think I'm just faking it right now. Maybe I'm just being swept along by what everyone else is doing. Even I don't have any taste, but everyone around me, they have it. So I guess I'm just going with the flow. I don't know. So let's get into that feeling of hope. Material hope against hope, but spiritually, you're confident. Oh my Lord, I do not have any love for you, nor am I qualified for discharging devotional service by chanting and hearing. Nor do I possess the mystic power of a Vaishnava, knowledge, or pious activities. Nor do I belong to a very high caste family. On the whole, I do not possess anything. Still, O beloved of the gopis, because you bestow your mercy on the most fallen, I have an unbreakable hope that is constantly in my heart. That hope is always giving me pain. very extraordinary prayer. Let us repeat. Oh my Lord, I do not have any love for you, nor am I qualified for discharging devotional service by chanting and hearing, nor do I possess the mystic power of a Vaishnava, knowledge or pious activities, nor do I belong to a very high caste family. On the whole, I do not possess anything. Still, O beloved of the gopis, because you bestow your mercy on the most fallen, I have an unbreakable hope that is constantly in my heart. That hope is always giving me pain. Now you might say, wait a minute, what about this pain here? We don't want pain. We want to enjoy. But this is not a material kind of agony. Remember, this prayer is coming from someone on the platform of Baba. In which the pain of separation has nothing to do with any material pain. In fact, the transcendental pain of separation enhances the Baba. And indeed, that transcendental pain of separation brings Krishna even closer. So there's no question of any drop of material pain. I have an unbreakable hope that is constantly in my heart. Unbreakable hope means you don't give up. So when I hear devotees express the faintest beginnings of these transcendental emotions, I encourage them. Start to see this very beginning transcendental emotion for what it is, and make it unbreakable. You do that by not being too proud to beg. And sometimes, at least sometimes, it should be all the time, but at least sometimes in Bhakti you're reduced to a beggar, just desperately appealing. And we're not used to that. We're proud. We're told to be self-reliant, have high self-esteem, love yourself, forgive yourself. But Krishna knows how to shatter our illusions of self-competence. So this prayer by a devotee is saying, I don't have any good qualities. I certainly have no love for Krishna. I'm not qualified for doing devotional service through chanting and hearing. I don't possess the transcendental abilities of a Vaishnava. I don't have transcendental knowledge. I don't have any bhakti activities. And materially, I'm not even from a very qualified family. I've got nothing going for me. Still, Gopi Janabhalava, I know you bestow your mercy on the most fallen. Therefore, I'm entitled. There's my sense of entitlement. Being the most fallen, I'm a suitable object for your mercy. Hina arta adhika sadhake. You bestow greater benedictions upon one who has fallen and possesses no good qualities. I have an unbreakable hope that is constantly in my heart. That hope is always giving pain. This pain is one of the mysteries of Bhakti. And you see it in its peak manifestation in the later chapters of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's stay. The later chapters of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. Lord Chaitanya's feelings of separation, which to the mundane eye look like total agony. But to the eye trained in Bhakti, these pains are the peak of pure love of Krishna. So again, when you have those feelings, oh, when will I ever hear Hare Krishna mantra? When will I long to hear Krishna's glories? That's the next characteristic we'll talk about. The ardent longing to associate with Krishna. That longing to associate with Krishna means longing for Krishna's service. In the verse we just discussed, the devotee is presenting himself as devoid of pure desire to please Krishna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the devotee is presenting himself as, I'm in it just for my personal happiness. I'm not thinking of Krishna's pleasure. I'm thinking simply, how can I be happy? But I know that you, Gopi Janabala, can transform that desire. I have that unbreakable hope. So having said that, we'll move on to the next of the 9 characteristics of the seedling stage of bhava. And I hope you can see some correspondence between the traces that you experience in the beginning or intermediate stages of bhakti. And now you're hearing about their successful development. So this is text 31. O Krishna, O flute player, the sweetness of your early age is wonderful within these 3 worlds. You know my unsteadiness, and I know yours. No one else knows about this. I want to see your beautiful, attractive face somewhere in a solitary place. But how can this be accomplished? It's a very advanced verse demonstrating longing for associating with Krishna by his service, by his qualities, by his activities, by his name. And naturally, one will have a great eagerness for hearing about Krishna and describing Krishna's qualities. How will we develop such longings in our stages of bhakti? Through hearing, the desires are aroused in the heart. And you shouldn't minimize that happening. Just a little stirring in the heart caused by a little bit of hearing causes such transformative effects. These effects are the rarest thing in material existence, the rarest thing within the material world. These are spiritual phenomena. So by hearing and by subjecting yourself to hearing and serving, even ever so slightly, your spiritual engine, so to speak, starts to turn over. You know what it sounds like if you have an old kind of car and you try to start it on a cold day. So something is happening, but the engine's not fully turned over. So our beginning feelings in spiritual life are like that. The sound that a car makes when you're trying to start it up on a cold day when the car hasn't been running a few days or a few weeks. And you're thinking, uh-oh, I hope the battery is okay. I hope I can get this thing started. Maybe new cars don't work like that anymore. That's how they do. So those traces of longing that we feel in the beginning, maximize them. Don't give them up. Let them propel you deeper. This is the art of how to use everything in Krishna's service, even the transcendental blues. When will that day be mine? When will it happen? Unbreakable hope, though. You don't give it up. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Mentioning just that last part about how we should take shelter of those transcendental abilities. Sometimes we can take shelter in the wrong way. Oh, it's also hard, and then you pretty much leave it at that, and then just space out, or not take advantage of that. So how do we, when we're getting into that moment, where we can take advantage, as you just suggested, how do we actually do that, but not just think, oh.
That's why we're speaking as we're doing now. Recognize that you're expressing very beginning traces of what is an ocean of substantiality in the realized soul. I can't get enough Krishna. When will that day be mine? When will I chant Hare Krishna properly? But you see, the difference is their hope is unbreakable. It leads to an increase. But because our moaning and groaning is material, we allow it to discourage us. Yeah, well, what's the use? Might as well just go out and be a slave of the external energy again. The proper way is complete confidence in Krishna's mercy, even though we feel we have no qualification. So we've got to elevate that kind of longing we feel in the beginning stage. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know how long I can last, but I'll keep trying. Even though I have no material or spiritual qualification. Because hinatardika sadhake. Gopijana is most merciful to those who have the least qualification. And he does that as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Remember Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami's presentation to Mahaprabhu when they met him at Ramakeli. They said, "You're known as Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the most fallen. Let us assure you, you won't find anyone more fallen than us. Therefore, please give us the mercy we beg you. We are the most suitable persons in the universe for receiving your mercy because we are indeed the most fallen. You won't find anyone worse than us." Now, they're not just singing poetry. They really feel like that. If you put your mercy on us, that will demonstrate to everyone the completeness and wonderful effects of your mercy. We are the best specimen. So in the association of devotees, our hopelessness can become a confident hope. That yes, I am unqualified, still, because Krishna is most merciful. I'm confident that I can push on, and I have a increasingly unbreakable hope. So there's unbreakable hope and there's breakable hope. The breakable hope is the neophyte stuff. I don't know how long I go on like this. And yeah, they say to chant Hare Krishna, everything will be sublime. I just don't know. I mean, my senses are just gobbling me up. My mind is torturing me. I don't know. I mean, I look at the devotees and, reminds me of George Harrison's stated reaction when he first met devotees. Yeah, well, a couple of them look pretty transcendental. A few look so-so, and a few look completely spaced out. But anyway, it looks like there's something going on here. So neophytes make those kind of calculations. Yeah, well, look around. Yeah, they're not blissful 24/7. I saw such and such senior devotee. He or she looked like they had some kind of anxiety. They're probably thinking about me, but anyway. So my point is, if you're going to feel this hopelessness, make it authorized, a confident hopelessness. It seems like I'll never be able to chant Hare Krishna with attention, but still I'm going on without break. Because I'm confident in Krishna's mercy, that when Krishna wants, he will award me that mercy. Meanwhile, I push on. That kind of confident hope comes from transcendental intelligence. Anything else? Yes.
Is there a distinction between being confident and being patient?
Is there a distinction between being confident and being
Patient.
patient? Patience is based on confidence that in Krishna's own time, your change will come. In fact, just by having that attitude, the change is already present. But sometimes our own devotees don't notice how they transform. I noticed that. Sometimes I hear, well, I've been chanting for some years now. I haven't noticed any difference. Meanwhile, you look at the devotee and he or she is shining and blissfully engaged in kirtan and serving others. I just don't think, I don't know if I feel anything. What do you mean? Look at you the way you are now compared to compared to a few years ago. You were a train wreck a few years ago. Now you're glowing and surcharged with Bhakti Shakti. So patience is based on knowledge. Therefore, you're confident. Yes.
Guru Maharaj, you mentioned yesterday how devotees in the beginning of the movement, they used to be quite direct and frank when they said like someone fool or someone in Maya. And you also mentioned that the message should be delivered at some point without being diluted. So if we have concern for someone maybe falling into Maya, how can we say we're falling in Maya, but in a nice, polite way?
He's asking that sometimes I describe how in the early days of Bhakti in the West, devotees were very young. Basically, Prabhupada was the only adult, and we were very enthusiastic and not very diplomatic or very, how do you say, polished in our presentation. And Prabhupada knew where we were at. I remember in the late 60s, the devotees of the first Boston temple, brand new devotees. You know, Bhakti had only been in the West for maybe 1 or 2 years. And so all they knew was to repeat the most basic things. So they opened up a new center in some old dilapidated building in Boston, the first center. And the news reporters came because they heard that, you know, some exotic new group has come. And so the news reporter said, well, what do you have to say? What can we tell the people of Boston? And the devotees just responded, it's a hellish world without Krishna. That's all they knew how to say, you know. And Prabhupada heard that and said, very good, very good. Yes, it is a hellish world without Krishna. Because he knew that, you know, they were sincere. That was basically all they could say. They were telling the truth, but obviously as you become more expert, you're able to deliver the message in a more artful way. You're not abrasive, you're not crude. I was telling you how I remember at a Sunday feast in 1975 in Los Angeles. Shesha Prabhu, my godmother Shesha Prabhu, and I were talking to one guest who was, you know, kind of a hippie pop impersonalist, you know. It's all the oneness. Yes, man, I dig Krishna. He's like, wow, you know. He's like the greatest manifestation of the oneness, man. I've been listening to this Baba, this yogi, wow, it's all, it's all everything, and everything is all it, and Krishna, the sun, the moon, yogi so-and-so, it's just, it's all the whatever, man. Don't bring duality into the discussion. So we were presenting Bhagavad Gita to him about how Krishna is not an ordinary person. So we kept repeating the verse over and over again. Avajanati mam mudha. Krishna says, fool, mudha, thinks he's an ordinary person. We would just chant it over and over again. Shakespeare would be on one ear of the guy, I'd be on the other ear of the guy. Mudha! So we were young and enthusiastic. We were telling the truth, but obviously it wasn't the most artful delivery of the message. But we were telling the truth. We were quoting Bhagavad Gita. I think I told you the story before of one devotee, a very expert devotee, artist and sculptor. He makes many of the Prabhupada murtis. And he was a very simple devotee, and not elaborate or intricate in any way. It's a very soft-hearted, simple devotee. And it was Saturday, and everyone would go out for book distribution, whether you were a top distributor, a sophisticated distributor, or just the simplest devotee. Everyone went out. And so he had a particular technique. It's like the late 60s. Again, Bhakti in the West had only been around for a few years. And so he was one of the first devotees on the West Coast. And so his Sankirtan technique was just going up to people with a Bhagavad Gita, opening the Bhagavad Gita and saying, Sarvadhamam prijyajya mamekam śaraṇam vraja. That's all he knew how to do. So one person he approached just like that. He read this, he just stopped the person, excuse me, listen to this. Sarvadhamam prijyajya, abandon all varieties of religion, surrender to me. Then he didn't see the person anymore. What happened? The person had collapsed right at his feet. So the person got up, purchased the book, and ran 4 miles back to his uni dormitory, his student hostel, and read the Bhagavad Gita, and became a devotee. So this Saturday Sankirtan devotee was doing the best he could, and Krishna acted through him. So you ask the second part of your question, if you see some of your, or one of your fellow devotees falling into the clutches of illusory energy, how do you say something? That's a difficult situation. Because generally such persons will say, yeah, I know, yeah, look, I know. And just don't bother me. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say them in Maya. And they'll make some excuse. And then finally they may tell you, look, don't call me, I'll call you. So it's a tough situation. Just have to pray to Krishna for sincerity and say what you can. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. I go through this situation all the time. Should I say something to the disciple, or should I not? Did he really want to hear it anyway? Sometimes you just have to have a sense of timing. Wait till the inevitable kick from the illusory energy comes. If they're fortunate, Krishna will do that. Otherwise, it's next lifetime. Anything else? No questions for over here? Yeah.
You're saying how what will it take for us to give up lusty desires? And so also that we think that we can have lusty desire and none of the other components of life, like beings and that. So I'm wondering what makes us think that we can have lusty desires alone and how to develop a sense of urgency to get them out.
So she's asking about the verse where it describes the merciless taskmasters, kāmādīnāṁ, lust, and so forth, and how we were discussing that we have the illusion that we can just have material desire without the other nasty components: anger, greed, envy, madness, delusion. So how is it we think like that? That's the nature of taking shelter of the illusory energy. You think you can pick and choose. All right, there's a six-pack. I'll just take the lust. And I will not be an angry person. I'll be a peace-loving, lusty person. And bear in mind that the kama, the lust, is not simply referring to carnality. It's referring to the whole expression for dominating and enjoying the material world. How do you see that assortment pack? Transcendental intelligence, as the verse says. Otherwise, you're victimized by what Shukadeva Goswami describes in the second canto, very beginning. Pashyanapi na pashyati. You're sufficiently experienced, but still you do not see. In other words, you cannot see what's going on by experience alone. You need transcendental intelligence. Otherwise, you'll never recognize what you're experiencing or what you're looking at. Yes.
I'm wondering, could you please elaborate on the statement that material desires are not innocent?
He's asking, can I elaborate on the statement that material desires are not innocent? We anoint them as innocent because we want to feel that it's not so bad, you know. Everyone's got them, you know. A little dab will do you. Keeps the system flowing, you know. Keeps you balanced. We concoct that. But someone who wants to be a pure devotee is always praying. How can I do everything for Krishna's pleasure? There are different levels of bhakti. And these verses we were reading in Caitanya Caritamrita are meant for propelling us to the stage of pure bhakti. That's why I mentioned in that verse about Gopi Jana Vallabha, I have this unbreakable hope that's giving me pain. The devotee, according to Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, is expressing that I'm in this for my personal enjoyment, but I'm begging you, please transform my motive into simply acting for your pleasure. So the so-called innocence that you ask about as the way we perceive material desire is our own concoction. It's not hurting anyone. I mean, I know a lot of persons who are much worse. Yeah, of course I know persons who are better. Try to understand though, if you're interested in achieving the higher levels of bhakti, you want to get to bhava, you start taking any contrary desire very seriously. This is what the nature of real love is. Because your goal is exclusive focus on the beloved, on Sri Krishna. Therefore the devotee is crying out, "Oh Gopi Jana Vallabha, the lover of the gopis." Krishna likes to be glorified in the association of his dearest devotees. So therefore, the Krishna Bhakta calls out to Krishna in that way. The diamond is surrounded by gold. The diamond, although beautiful in of itself, becomes even more beautiful because of the gold base that the diamond is on. All right. Time for some kirtan. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.